Yeah, and so um, you know, we look at Disney and we there's an appreciation for Disney because we perceive of Disney as having that sense of innocence, right? Um, but is that the truth? Is Disney an innocent, encompassing company? So, so the postmodernist, what he's going to do is he's going to be critical of this, maybe hypocritically, maybe sincerely. I say hypocritically because look, we'll go watch an Avengers movie owned by Disney, Star Wars owned by Disney, what have you. But that's not going to keep them from saying, hey, why is it that the majority of women in Disney films are subject to a patriarchal idea? Why is it that the women in Disney films are generally damsels in distress? There's rarely, I'm not saying there's not, but there's rarely a woman who's not fending for herself, so to speak, right? Um, and what about, one of the critiques of postmodernity, because postmodernity too is loved by the capitalist agenda. I mean, I'm a big corporation, and I'm going to say, that's right. Let's support postmodernity. Let's support the individual, right? Why? Why are capitalist agendas so happy with the promoting of the individual? Because it allows for a very, very marketable process. Yeah, we need to, as a company, I need to differentiate things for the masses. And so here you go, buy this Che Guevara shirt. I mean, almost ironically, right? Because Che Guevara was a anti-capitalist and he battling the system, so to speak. And today, now we're making, look at the irony of this. Somebody's going to say, look, I'm a Che Guevaraist. No, we're not, right? We wouldn't be buying the Che Guevara T-shirt, right, or the Marx T-shirt or something. I mean, it's postmodernity is a capitalist corporate monster's dream, right? And what's the idea behind it? Well, a lot of the products too that we purchase, right, even the ones that we seem to be so free of harm or any um, bad happening of sort. Uh, these are the videos that are um, I mean, not videos, sorry. I'm caught up here with the presentation. Uh, these are the products that are that probably have children or women or even men, right, in developing countries and exploiting them at pennies on the dollar. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if you've heard of the horror stories of Nike tennis shoes or Adidas tennis or any tennis shoes for that matter, right? Um, you get these kiddos not going to school or getting an education. Why? Because they'd rather be working. It's not that they rather be working, but the way a lot of systems in these countries, I mean, hopefully things are coming around, but historically and generally, these poor children are, you know, stuck in factories making shoes while we enjoy them, right? And we say, I got my Nikes and they look great, right? But at what cost? I mean, yeah, it individualizes me. And here's the thing, does it? I mean, I go in there and I buy, oh, look, these are unique. There's one in a million, right? And, and then right behind me, somebody else is buying the exact same shoe or same T-shirt or same sports coat or what have you, right? Um, so you see the struggle, the pull, the tug and pull of this postmodern agenda. So in some sense, it's great, right? It's great. Individuality gives minorities a voice, challenges oppressive dictums, right? Oppressive policies or oppressive rules and things of the sort. And it's people saying, "Hey, come on, we're all equal in the world. We all have a sense of right." Uh, but by the same token, it also has its critiques. And I just gave you a sense of one of them, right? Where we're not as free of some of the harms of this postmodern agenda. Um, so I hope that makes some sense. I hope that's it. That, the idea. It's basically postmodernity is basically a response to modernity. So modernity says here everybody's got to be Christian. I'm a knight in shining armor, and I stick out my sword, and I look so glimmery and glamorous in my armor, and I say, "Are you Christian?" I say, "Well, no, I'm Jewish or I'm Muslim," and slam off with your head, and it was kind of like that in the modern sense, right? Back in the Middle Ages, so to speak. So let me talk about Borges. This is kind of the background. This is kind of the background that I wanted to promote for um, um, exemplifying the postmodern ideal. And this is an Argentinian writer, writer of the 19th century, very, very early 20th century, Jorge Luis Borges. And the story I assigned was House of Asterion. Right? And the House of Asterion is really interesting. It retells what we call it's a myth of the Greek city of Crete, right? The Crete they call it the Cretan myth. And the traditional story, this is not the story that Borges wrote, this is the traditional story, but this is the story where um, um, one of the mythological ideals was Poseidon was a mighty god, right? Who are the kind of like the big gods? And I mean, there's a whole bunch of mythological gods, but who are the big, big gods? Well, Zeus, certainly up there. Um, um, Hades, uh, Hades by both terms of name of a god and name of you're traveling to Hades, right? It's kind of like this purgatory area, and Poseidon. The three of them were brothers, and on the island of Crete is Mino, and Mino was about to take the throne, and he asked of Poseidon to send him kind of like a symbol or a message, and Poseidon sends him this beautiful white bull. I mean, unfound anywhere. It's this beautiful white bull. And so here's this bull, and Poseidon's looking at it. Uh, and I mean, not Poseidon, Minos looking at it. And Minos says, "Gosh, this is such a beautiful creature." Poseidon, of course, what he wanted is he wanted Mino to sacrifices. But Mino was admiring it so much, and he thought he could defy, of course, Poseidon. So he brought in an alternate bull, sacrificed that bull as sacrifice to Poseidon. And Poseidon, of course, he's a god. He's, going to find out. He does find out, uh, and he gets what you call his wife, right? And I know it sounds strange, right? That he gets what he calls his wife, but he gets his wife, and uh, Poseidon basically tells his wife, "Hey, you're going to fall in love with this white bull." It's almost like he what's the word? Um, godly magic on her. So Pasiphae was her name. Pasiphae is Mino's wife, um, and she does fall in love with the bull. And secretly, they go and have. She has an affair with a bull. Sounds very strange, I know, but this is the original Cretan myth, right? And who's born? Product of Pasiphae and this white bull. The birth is Asterion, half half man, half bull. And here you have an image of him. Uh, and of course, Mino finds out, and because he's a monster, he's not a humanly product, nor is he generally a product of traditional nature. Um, he only devours human entities, so he is a monster. So Mino sends about and he says, "Let's create this labyrinth, and we've got to incarcerate this terrible monster, so to speak." And they do. He incarcerates this terrible monster, and He had a neighboring Theseus, I think was the name of the neighboring king. And there was a type of battle, and there was a type of curse on Theseus where Theseus was led to have a plague. And Minos says, "Hey, you've got a plague. You've got to send me 7 men, 7 women, so that I can help you with that plague. We'll sacrifice them over to my to my monster, right? To my kind of plague." And they would put in these men and women into that labyrinth. They couldn't escape the labyrinth created by the mighty craftsman Daedalus, father of Icarus. Uh, well, they put in these individuals in there, and of course the traditional story is that Asterion goes and he devours them all for all eternity until actually I got my names right. Anyways, it was a neighboring king, but until Theseus was one of the years. Theseus was one of the 7 men, and Theseus, of course, had fallen in love with Minos' daughter. Um, and Minos' daughter helps Theseus through the labyrinth, and together they kind of conquer and kill Asterion. Well, that's the traditional story, so to speak. Here comes Borges, and Borges he rewrites this story, and he says, "Okay, well, let's think about it. Why this labyrinth? And of course, it's not that Borges wanted to undo the story; it's that Borges wanted to retell the story. And he does. He retells the story, this beautiful story, from a very symbolic philosophical perspective and says, who are we in the world? What's our purpose here? What's the scope of existence? Here's this labyrinth, so to speak. If I look up to the universe up above and I'm trying to make sense of existence as a whole, notice you look up there and it's infinite, right? The possibility of meaning is never ending. So again, let's think about postmodernity. What happens in the modern period? In the modern period, we start getting very black and white, very black and white meanings. It's either this or it's that. Borges comes out and he says, "Look, I'm going to say it's this path or that path," and he redefines the labyrinth as interpreted as follows. He says, "Here's the labyrinth, and the labyrinth is it's basically Asterian's entire universe. It's his interpretation of multiplicity of meaning. He's not a monster. He's a very rational creature who's making sense of the world. And instead of this labyrinth being an incarceration, we generally get frustrated when we don't get the one meaning, right? Modernity. What happens with postmodernity is Borges is trying to say there's a beauty and there's almost like a liberation that it could possibly be wrong, but that's okay. It could also be possibly right. We shouldn't say that it is right. We shouldn't say that it's wrong. Borges is saying there's the beauty in the possibility of, in essence, never-ending possibility. I know it sounds headachy, and it partially is, yeah. Um, but that's what he's doing, and he retells the story of Borges of this Asterion as this kind of noble, rational, almost intellectual creature. And he says, yeah, and what frustrates me, uh, Borges seems to be saying of Asterion is, says, what seems to be frustrating me is that people are just labeling, putting this one moniker on me. I'm a monster, I'm this and that. And I want to be freed. So the end of the story, so to speak, Theseus comes in, and the way Borges is kind of interpreting, he kind of thematically says it's a story of redemption and freedom. He allows himself to be defeated by Theseus, versus the classic where he's battled by Theseus. In this new story, he allows himself to be defeated by Theseus, right? And in that defeat is a type of, in essence, kind of a noble type. I mean, it's hard to say it's noble, but it's a type of liberation,